Hello,
Right.
everyone. We will be starting the talk. Live streaming is on. So, first, I'll give an introduction on what is the need was arising to do such a talk. So, I am Adarsh. I'm doing PhD at IIT Bombay, and we are part of a group called APPSC, Ambedkar Periyar Phule Study Circle, and we do we work towards creating space, political space in the campus, and also protecting campus democracy within the campus, and also extending solidarity with the larger movemental efforts which is happening in our country. So in that context, we will start the talk. We are doing this talk when like we are seeing Maruti Suzuki workers are protesting in Gurgaon area. A large protest mass gathering is being happening for demanding equal pay and by the contract by the non-permanent workers of different variety, contract, apprenticeship, and etc. And we are also seeing in Mumbai, there was a few days back a big protest in Baba Atomic Research Center by both contract workers and permanent workers for demanding better conditions of working. And few days like in the trajectory, like various workers struggle has arisen in Samsung by Samsung workers, and in even in Bihar there was a big protest in Patna by metro workers. So we are in a situation that workers struggle is being made, and workers are struggling, but at the same time there has been no talk around that. So we thought that maybe this is the juncture where we should make an intervention around how students who are part of the larger solidarity effort with workers, students, and the old slogan of worker student solidarity can be remained and made valuable even in our time. So this was the context in which the talk is being organized, particularly specific to IIT Bombay. We saw that few months back, Raman Gharase, along with two other contract workers, have been won a legal victory for our gratuity benefits, and which has a significant impact, gives a significant impact in the larger struggles for the contract workers. And this was the context we have organized this talk. And today we have with us Sudha Bhardwaj, who is a important democratic rights voice in our country, and is a advocate and a trade unionist, and has been implicated under unjust full UAPA by a state who has stand in the favor of the capital towards and in the famous Bhima Koregaon case, and now she's on bail. And today she is with us to give this talk, and she has been active in Raman Gharase case. And also we have with us Professor Rahul Varman, who is teaching at Management of Sciences at IIT Kanpur, and he has been active in organizing workers at IIT Kanpur. So we will start the talk with both the speakers will present for like 30 minutes, and then we will go ahead with comments, remarks, and question. And the house will be open for questions and comments. So I want to invite Sudha ji, आप अगर प्रेजेंट करने के लिए आते.
Sorry to disturb you. I think she is not audible to me.
सुधा जी, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
Okay, am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, yes, you
Am I?
are audible now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. As Adarsh described to us, um, the cause for doing to the thought of having a meeting like this uh, basically arose out of the gratuity case of the contract workers of IIT Bombay. Now, why is this very important? This is very important because um, basically giving gratuity for the entire period in which those contract workers work. All of them had come to this, started working in this institute when they were young, and they superannuated from there, having long years of work, anything between 25 and 40 years of work for these particular three workers. And the management, of course, of IIT was basically saying that that they are not our workers; they're the workers of contractors. And indeed, though the oldest of them, two of them, had actually joined as temporary workers, casual workers of the IIT itself, because at that time there was no system of contract workers. They all used to be direct casual labor, which is actually as it should have been, or in fact they should. It should have gone further. They should have been permanent workers of the IIT. But anyway, so they were directly appointed initially, and then continuously they were on contract for 1 year at a time, or 2 years at a time, or 1.5 years at a time. And in all this period, no contractor ever gave them an appointment letter, neither did the IIT. They were never retrenched. They were working absolutely regularly all through the year. It was regular, continuous, perennial work. And when they superannuated, they were told to superannuate. Actually, under contract workers, there is nothing like superannuation, really speaking. But they were told not to come. Now you have attained the age of 60, so please stop coming. And then when they applied, the IIT said, well, sorry, we don't know who you are, because you are the employee of the contractors, and so please go to them. And the whole struggle was that gratuity only happens when you have at least worked for 5 years. But actually, each contractor could have individually said that you have not worked for 5 years with me. So therefore, you are not entitled to grant. And but the fact of the matter is that they worked for 40 years for the IIT. That is the reality. The rest of it was a paper arrangement. Now, so the fact that this veil of paper arrangement which had been created, it could be removed by the courts, both by the controlling authority under the Payment of Gratuity Act who passed the first order, and then by the Deputy Labour Commissioner who passed the appellate order, and finally by the High Court. Then it became quite clear that actually the entire control and supervision was by the IIT. They were working for the IIT, and in between, actually nothing had. I mean, it was a continuous work, and the entire work had to be taken into account, and therefore their gratuity had to be paid. And what is gratuity? Gratuity is basically, it is how are you go after giving an entire lifetime to an establishment, how are you now going to survive? So the idea of the gratuity was that this is something very important. It's a social security. And in fact, if you look at the act, it has what is called a non-obstante clause. That means notwithstanding anything else in any other act. So it supersedes. And basically what it's saying that for every year of work that you have put in, you deserve to get 15 days of work, 15 days of wages set aside for the purpose of gratuity at the last rate of payment that you were getting. So actually, basically, if you did 40 years of work, it means basically you got 20 months of payment, which is actually not such a big sum, and definitely not such a big sum for the IIT. But their entire concern was to say they are not my workers. They are not permanent workers. And therefore, we don't owe anything to them. तो इस सिचुएशन में यहाँ पर कैसे आ गए? That workers who are working continuously for us, regularly for us, doing essential work in the campus, and in fact, they were being completely supervised by the IIT people. I mean, the contractor was just a bank account actually, in which IIT would transfer the money, and the contractor will transfer the money to the worker. Apart from acting as a bank account, a conduit for paying the wage, contractor had no role to play. because everything was decided by whichever department they were working in. Some of them were gardeners, some of them were in the electricity department, some were in the maintenance, so on and so forth. So actually, what is the law around all this, and why are we at a very delicate stage of this? So first of all, one of the most important and basic uh, general laws. I'm not talking about specific laws for specific groups of workers like gig workers or building construction workers or domestic workers, etc. But the last major law for workers in general was the Contract Labor Regulation Abolition Act 1970. Okay. So the Contract Labor Regulation Abolition Act. Now that was an act which admitted कि contract labor क्या है, ये एक exploitative system है. मतलब ये आप you are trying to deprive people of permanency and all the benefits which go with permanency, because with permanency you have many things. You have housing, you have medical rights, you have right of compassionate appointment, you get all the allowances which you're supposed to have, you're supposed to have increments, you're supposed to have wage revision, you have unionizing rights, you have many things which come along with permanency. So to avoid doing all that and get people at the barest possible minimum, lowest wage possible, actually contractualization was being used. And the 1970 Act was intended ki isko roke, to stop it. That is why it is actually called Regulation and Abolition Act. And if you look at the aims and objects of that, what does it say? It says that to abolish contract labor wherever possible, and where it is not possible, let us regulate. Okay. So basically, the idea was that we should put a stop to it, and and therefore there were certain guidelines laid down in that. Then what are the situations in which you should be abolishing contract? When a work is regular, when a work is perennial, when a work is sufficient to employ particular number of regular workmen, and so regular, continuous, perennial, and when it is essential to the establishment, it is not just. So, for example, if you have a factory, now in that factory you want to build a bicycle shed. Now that is a work maybe of 10 days and a few workers, and obviously you cannot expect that the factory will make the workers who make the shed permanent. So that can be given on contract. That is something not essential to the entire working, and it is something. It's a short-term work. It is to give a particular to give a particular product to the company. Then you can contract it out. But for something which is being done day in and day out for the establishment, whether they are mess workers of the establishment, whether they are the malis of the establishment, whether they are the people who do the electrical maintenance, whether they are people who do the sweeping of the campus, whether they, whatever tasks they are doing, the safai karmis, all these people are doing continuous work for the establishment, which is necessary for its maintenance. They're coming in every day to work, and it is decided by the establishment where they will be placed, where they will work, how much they will work, etc., etc. And even actually their wages and all their conditions are decided by them. It is on that basis that the contractor is asked to pay. So the idea was that in such circumstances, contract labor should be abolished. Why wasn't it abolished? So actually that act has two ways of abolishing. One was the way that the central government or the state government should come out with a notification. In such and such occupation, contract labor is abolished. Then according to that notification, you can no longer have contract workers in that. For example, sweeping of government institutions. Contract labor is abolished, which means actually you should not have a single contractual safai karmachari in a central government building. The central government has abolished. Okay. So for like that, some notifications came out for a short while. I think the last of the notifications came in the 80s. After that, notifications stopped coming altogether. So the same powers the state government had, the state government could have also made people permanent, looking into their work, the nature of their work. Now, obviously, governments are not interested in doing that, because nowadays governments are interested in what is it, minimal governance or whatever it is. So basically, they want to wash their hands of everything. So they were not keen on that. They wanted to outsource everything. What was the other route? The other route was they were supposed to be advisory committees, contract labor advisory committees in the states and in the center. And these advisory committees had members of trade union also. Many places you'll find those advisory boards are never constituted. In the central government, they had to do it because it dealt with all the public sector, like the coal industry, the railway industry, like the uh, so on and so forth. So steel, coal, all these things which are in the public sector, they had to make central advisory boards. But state advisory boards, many places they were never. I think today there is no contract advisory board in Maharashtra, for example. So it was to that board was we are supposed to give an application and say, look, this is the work we're doing. It's regular, it's continuous, it's essential, it's perennial. Please abolish contract labor. So why aren't people doing that? Why aren't people going to these boards? That's the other question. When we know it is regular, continuous, perennial, everybody understands that. Why don't they go? They don't go because of two reasons. One reason is that a case was done in the Supreme Court long, long ago, uh, uh, in 1997, uh, and that one went in the workers' favor. It was called the Air India Statutory Corporation. That was where, even in cases where contract labor had been abolished, they were continuing with contract labor. So all those people petitioned the courts. Different courts did different things, different high courts did different things, and then the Supreme Court brought them all together and put them in the Supreme. And Air India Statutory Corporation, there was a good order. That order was that wherever people have been working for long periods of time against work in which contract labor has been abolished, they require to be absorbed. Now, had this been our case, Raman Gharase should have been a permanent worker of the IIT by now. He worked for 40 years. He had to take his own life because of his debt and conditions of his life. Because the IIT was refusing him even something as small as gratuity. So, then why didn't it happen? Because the Air India Statutory Corporation was overturned by another judgment called the Sale judgment, and it is 7 judges. That means if you want to go beyond that, we need to have 10 judges. Now, what did this intelligent 7 judges sitting in judgment do? They basically said that you see, we cannot absorb these people because there is no clause for absorption in the Contract Labor Act. It doesn't say anything about absorption. And besides, all these people have come from the back door. If there is supposed to be permanency, it should be there should be proper recruitment process, there should be eligibility, there should be proper recruitment. So by absorbing these people, we are being unfair to those people who are better qualified and should have come in. Now, this is so ridiculous. When you don't open the front door, obviously people will come only from the back door because you need people. Who is going to do that work? Do you believe it that in the city of Mumbai, for the last more than 40 years, the number of permanent workers doing safai work has not increased? Can you believe that the same number of permanent workers can clean up a city which has become 8 times the size, so many times the population, so complicated? Obviously not. I mean, anybody with a little bit of common sense knows that. So you have to create more posts. but you don't create more posts. So you don't open the front door. You don't recruit people. So you take people through the back door. Now, is it that person's fault that they have come through the back door? Besides, you did it illegally. You are not allowed to take contract labor and you took it. So, but unfortunately, the sale judgment is the law of the land today. So now people who are even working against posts where contract labor is abolished are afraid of going to the court because they'll not be absorbed. They'll be thrown out and a fresh recruitment will take place. Which idiot will go to the court to get his job removed? Nobody will go. So it's quite clear. So was there no hope for the contract workers? Yes, there was one hope. That one hope was if we can prove that the contracts are sham and bogus. Okay. Sorry, am I taking too much time, Bharat? I'll just
No,
finish up.
go ahead, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Sham and bogus means that basically if all the power is really with the principal employer. Principal employer is only appointing, controlling, supervising, terminating, disciplining, doing everything. Contractor is just a paper arrangement. It's just a, you know. Now for that, you have to go to an industrial court and prove it through evidence that this paper is actually just a paper and it's a sham, it's a smoke screen. And therefore, now I should be made permanent. Now, one group of workers called the Kachra Vahatuk, organized as Kachra Vahatuk Shramik Sangatna, they actually did this and they have managed to get 2,700 Safai Karmis in the Bombay Municipal Corporation made permanent. Because they prove that these people go to the BMC ward, they are told where to work, they work alongside the permanent work, they do exactly same and similar work. It is the BMC people who supervise them, it is the BMC people who appoint them. So there's no role of the contractor except, as I said, to act as a banker. So they got it. Now, but now when they are going in the higher courts with the next group of workers, like there's 1,800 workers more or another, they're coming. Now that they have come up with a new theory. How can we make you permanent when there are no posts? Who was supposed to create the posts? There are no sanctioned posts nowadays. There are no vacant sanctioned posts. You can only be absorbed if they're vacant and sanctioned. So basically, one sham and bogus arrangement, even after you have torn it apart, another paper arrangement, that is the making of posts. Now, obviously, if the workload has increased and tens of thousands of contract workers are being needed to do that work, you should have created posts. If you haven't done it, it isn't the worker's fault. So these are the fake legal arguments which are being created to prevent contract workers from becoming permanent. So it's a very serious situation because everywhere, I'll give you a simple example of Bhilai Steel Plant. In the 1960s, there were 96,000 permanent workers. In 2025, there are 10,000 permanent workers and 50,000 contract workers or more. And those contract workers are doing the same work as the permanent worker at not even 1/3, maybe 1/4 of that wage. They don't have housing, they don't have hospital benefit, they don't have anything actually. And the moment they try to organize, they will be thrown out. They do the most hazardous work, the longest hours, and that, so what are they supposed to do? So it's really a very serious situation. And it's basically one way of creating, it is like the caste system. You cannot get out of it and become permanent anymore. There was a time when you could have hoped that from a contract worker, you can become a permanent worker. Today, it is like Baba Sahib said, they're on separate floors and there's no lift to go in between. And most importantly, the 4 new labor codes which are going to come, they have created a concept called fixed term contract. That means now it's not contract worker who is going to be abolished. It is the permanent worker who is going to be abolished. Now, can you imagine what that means? That means everybody is going to be a contract worker. Now, being a contract worker means what? Number one, you can't unionize. And if you can't unionize, you can't get anything else. There's no question. So, you have low wages, you don't have all the allowances, I mean, so basically, this is keeping wages down. It is making people work long hours. You've just heard what the L&T gentleman says, that he thinks people should, how many hours people should work. So anyway, workers are working 12 hours. I mean, anything more than that is simply inhuman. It is not possible for people to work more than that. They're already working 12 hours. In most of the industrial areas you go, it is not 8-hour work, it is 12 hours. And so this is the situation, and therefore on the educational campuses, at least where we have groups like APPSC or Hamara Manch or other organizations where students and workers can come together, we should at least try to ensure, and we should try to raise people's consciousness about this situation of the contract workers, and persuade that if there are, if a work is regular, continuous, essential to the establishment, then you should be recruiting permanent workers, and to make a pressure that actually the workload requires more permanent posts, and that should be created. We should also remember that, particularly in the public sector, which is more and more getting privatized and contractualized, it is not merely a question of wage, it is also a question of status. It's also a question of reservations, for example. You can enforce reservations in a situation where you're creating permanent posts, but you can't ensure reservation anywhere else. And particularly, I have seen, at least in Chhattisgarh, in the municipal corporations, earlier when the work of Safai Karmis was a permanent work, it is not only that they got better wages, but it was recognized that this is a community which has been discriminated against for centuries together. Therefore, we have to give housing, we have to give scholarships to their children, we have to give compassionate appointments, and thus you make some space for an upward mobility, you make some space for a level playing field for the workers coming from that community. But the moment you make them just purely contract workers, then you are not even recognizing the social strata from which they come. You are just giving them a minimum wage and that's done. So no schemes apply to them. The schemes which were earmarked for Safai Karmacharis are not being given to them. So this is, we are really in this 4 labor codes and increasing contractualization even in the organized sector. Less than 10% is permanent workers. And in the new companies which are coming up, particularly of Adani and all that, it's 100% contract labor. There are no permanent workers at all. In the railways, only the loco pilot is now a railway employee. Nobody else. The gangmen, the canteen workers, uh, the cleaners, everybody is contract. So basically, and it's not restricted only to manual labor, let me assure you. In the universities, the teachers are on contract. In the hospitals, the doctors are on contract. The IITs may be escaping it for now, but the day is not. The IIT professors will also be on contract. So I'll just stop there. It's a serious situation, and we need to look at that. Thank you. We'll take questions later.
Thank you, Sudhaji. Professor Rahul Varman can now, if you want to go ahead. Otherwise, and we will take question or comments after this presentation.
Okay, thanks, Adarsh. So around 30 minutes I can take.
Yeah, surely.
Okay, all right.
Just there is an issue. We are not able to see any speakers' video. So
Yeah, If you look at that, if you are the host, isn't it, Adarsh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you do the tile view in on your screen, then does it work?
Sorry to interrupt you, others, but he is visible to me.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
Yes.
the slide
no,
there.
And
no. But on the YouTube, people are none of us are visible. I mean the
oh,
yeah. So
screening.
Adarsh,
Okay.
if you are the host, then if you
Sir,
click at the tile,
yeah,
Bharat
I
is
am the host, sir. I tried the toggle view, but it is not.
okay, that it's not working. If you do tile view or participants view, I mean, or the screen, I think looks like that whiteboard is showing as the big screen there, no?
Yeah,
yeah.
I from my side I hit the
Oh, okay.
so the whiteboard, but I am
Anyway,
now.
let's go ahead if it is there is a
All right.
permanent issue.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So can I begin?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Sudha, and thanks to all of you for finding time on a Sunday afternoon to listen to our journey. What I'll do is, Sudha has talked about the large picture. What I'm going to do is a very, very peculiar kind of experience that we had over these couple of decades that we have. So I'm going to talk about a bit about the twists and turns and what we have tried to do and what we have learned from that. So very quickly, if I can just give you people a background. I mean, point is that when we are talking about Kanpur, then we are saying that from early 20th century, this was one of the major industrialized industrial centers of the country at that time, and right from early 20th century, Kanpur has been known for militant trade union movement. Once IITs are made, like many other of these older IITs, IIT Kanpur also, there was a Karmchari movement here, and a union was formed, and people achieved something. The first generation of workers. So this is 1970s and so on. But come 1990s, by the time I'm joining here, we are saying that almost everything is in the process of being given on contract. Permanent workers, a very large number of them, the first generation who got regular jobs, they were given VRSs and so on, and all kinds of work that we can think of. Everything is in the process of going on contract. And but right in 1990s itself, a resistance against this kind of a contractualization started. So Kanpur has this kind of IIT Kanpur campus has this long legacy of a continuous at one side, authorities are trying to obviously find, they are in the quest of cheap and more docile worker. On the other side, there has been involvement of student, rest of the community, as well as workers, to be able to fight for their rights. So first, in 1990s, a unique kind of thing happens, and it started with some of the Chhattisgarhi migrant construction workers in the campus, that an attempt to form a workers cooperative, and the basic demand was minimum wages. I mean, as soon as contractualization happened, left, right, and center, all kinds of work, people are working, and worse, of course, has always been construction workers. So this whole thing that so it started that why do we need a contractor? Workers can form their own cooperative, and then they can give them the proper wages, at least the minimum due wages. So this started in 1990s, started with construction workers, but where it got implemented really and stabilized right in 1990s, 1992, this cooperative was formed. It's called, in short, Samiti, and amongst the cleaning workers. So even today, I mean, 3 decades down, maybe there are around a couple of hundred cleaning workers who are part of the workers cooperative. So cleaning work and civil maintenance work, and perhaps some of the best contract workers rights in the campus have been secured by this Samiti. This is couple of hundred workers, maybe around 350 workers today. So this is one kind of a thing. So this has happened in 1990s, early 1990s. By the later 90s, many of us in the campus realized that this is very limited. There is at such a scale contractualization is happening, that we need to think about the larger set of workers. So what happens is, there is a new computer science building was coming up here in the academic area, funded by Mr. Narayan Murthy. Mr. Narayan Murthy has been an alumnus of IIT Kanpur. So funded by him, and some students went there. They, as some of the acts that Sudha mentioned, Contract Labor Act, and various other kinds of act, crash, this, that, all kinds of facility, safety. So they came up with interesting report, and these were undergrad students actually. They said that, okay, so this is what the law says in the country, and this is what is happening in these buildings. This is how people are working. And these reports, I think they are still available in certain public domains. So these reports reached, authorities. Some of the other members, community members, also intervened in the process. Faculty forum, which is a forum of faculty members in the campus, they picked up this. So what gets formed in IIT Kanpur is something called minimum wage monitoring committee. So this gets formed, and MWMC. And basically, MWMC, some of the community members took this demand that Contract Labor Act says that IIT Kanpur is a principal employer, and it says that the wages have to be paid in the presence of a representative of the principal employer. That's how MWMC gets formed. It was a small committee. As things would have it, I think when Sudha was a student here, one of her wingmates was the first chair of the committee. But let me come to this, cut the story short. So MWMC gets, and it has a large number of then volunteers. And what these volunteers, student, faculty, some of the other community members, residents, we say that even a single rupee transaction between a worker and a contractors across all kinds of works, cleaning, mess, construction, even in advance, it will be done in the presence of the volunteers. We got a very large number of volunteers at that time, site to site, work to work. So this was a large kind of an experiment. We went to hostels, we got access to all the sites, we could document the working conditions, we could document the workers' rights, migrant residents, doesn't matter what kind of work. So this was a large thing. Almost every day we used to open this minimum wage office. And almost from starting from 2008 end, this committee sometime gets formed. 2007 or something, this work went on. Every hostel will have meetings, the large number of student participation. But what happens in 2007 sometime, in the second half, there are 3 fatalities on construction sites in the campus. And even before that, what had happened is that we had become a liability. I mean, the MWMC volunteers had become a liability for the administration. And they had stopped listening to, kind of not listening to us. That's the time many of us walked away from the minimum wage monitoring committee. We said, you don't listen to us. We think that we are doing institute's work by making the working conditions livable and more some dignity for workers here. This is all institute work that we are doing. And so we walk away, and that's how Hamara Manch gets formed. Hamara Manch literally is our platform. So even before 2008, it gets formed. Even before platform economy or platform workers becomes a fashionable word, we were literally on a platform. So Hamara Manch we form, and basically, 2000, I mean, when we formed Hamara Manch, it was again certain construction workers. Again, it's an interesting story. Arun Shourie, through his MP Lads funds, was funding an environment building in the campus. All his MP Lads. He was an MP, Rajya Sabha MP from UP, and hence IIT Kanpur, and hence these funds. So he had given the whole fund, and there again we had started working with the workers there. All kinds of irregularities. It's a very, very long study, the fight of environmental building workers, which still is going on in certain ways. But what happens? We form this Hamara Manch, and we say that every week we will have a meeting at a fixed place and a fixed time, and that becomes the organized expression of Hamara Manch. That it's an open forum, anybody can come to this meeting, And we can, and only agenda is contract workers. I mean, that's what contract workers and other kinds of service providers, as you will see as I go further in what I have to say. So this gets formed, and a couple of things we say that now that authorities are not listening to us, we will only talk to the community. Hamara Manch is not going to talk to the authorities. We tried to create as much of community involvement, user involvement, if we may so others can go to the community, to the authorities. Workers will of course have to go and talk to the authorities, but Hamara Manch as such will not go and talk to the authorities. Also, another important thing happens with these three fatalities in the campus in 2007, and then forming of Hamara Manch. In this between, alumni participation. Also remember, with all this long legacy of IIT Kanpur of workers' rights, we also have our own alumni. So many concerned alumni of various kinds of batches, they came, and if Amit here is Amit Singh, that I think Amit Singh was one of the early, people who got involved. What we formed is what is called as IIT Kanpur Citizens Forum. And basically, it's a forum of alumni. I think Amit was the first one to make the website for the IIT KCF. So we started using all kinds of medium, notice boards, wherever. We will do lots of fact finding. Whatever we find, it will be put in public domain. Because see, in this site, at this place, this is what authorities are doing. This is how the rights of the workers are being violated. And we go to public. We will go to public, meaning to the community. And community, remember, every time I use the word community, community for us meant alumni also, all through since 2008. So these have been some kind of a break. I'll just quickly leave this here, the kind of timeline that I was talking about. Let me come to the present in certain ways, and then I want to say a couple of more things given the shortage of time. So if we look at this formation of Hamara Manch, and then 16 years, so one thing I should say is that maybe there hasn't been, every Wednesday evening we meet, and perhaps there has not been a Wednesday, a COVID lockdown time as an exception, that when actually these Wednesday meetings have not happened. Whatever happens, one thing which always happens, whether a one person comes or 100 people come, that Hamara Manch meetings do happen every Wednesday evening. So how do we look at the overall situation? Remember, when we started this work in 1990s, even in spite of Samiti being formed here in 1992, I mean, the whole idea, if you look at the attitude of the authorities, they will say, "Bhai, what is the point in giving the work on contract if we have to think about workers?" So it's not IIT Kanpur's job to think about workers. It's not IIT Kanpur's job to think about wages, this, that, working conditions, safety, ye, wo. That's the kind of an attitude we started with. I remember very vividly when the first hostel was privatized. I think it was Hall 5. And there was a contractor named Ahar Vihar. I think he got a contract at that time in IIT Bombay also, if I remember correctly. He got workers from Raebareli, from Nepal. He got some kids. He told them, "We'll give you 3 meals. You go, you lie down somewhere in the mess, and there's nothing like wages. You get food. You come early morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock to work till 11 o'clock in the night." So that is the kind of what happened after 91. It's completely free for all. We were almost back into whatever the early industrialization phase, industrial revolution times, what we read about in Dickinson's novels. We could exactly see those kind of conditions, from where we have been able to reach this kind of a thing, that there's a whole measure of stability of a certain kind. So first thing, and the most important thing is that we are saying is that there is some idea that, okay, so much to be done, but still, just give you one example, since I'm talking about messes. Now there is a very, very important clause in all the mess tenders, and there are around 900 mess workers in IIT Kanpur right now. There are 10,000 students. That for every 11.25 students, there will be one mess worker. And see, if these kind of some measures are not there, even in the tender document, there is no way we'll be able to establish certain. At some point, historically, a certain tender documents, certain kind of clauses in those tender documents, we were able to write. Once we got certain kind of a handle there. So number of workers, these kinds of rights on paper, and therefore rights which we can be established, which are implementable because they are written right in the contract. I mean, very large number of workers from cleaning to messes to security, horticulture, civil maintenance, lot of office staff, maybe around 3,000 odd workers, 2,500 to 3,000 odd workers, all get the central government's minimum wage in the campus, more or less. All of this is very fluid and tenuous, so take whatever I say with the, with your fingers crossed. So they get minimum, which means a wage of around what, 790 plus 793 or something is the central government minimum wage today. They get ESI, PF. ESI, PF was not there till this event of 2007-8, those three fatalities. After that, we were able to get those rights also. So ESI, PF for most of these workers, well, in says, I mean, to the extent ESI hospitals work or not, no, that's another kind of a battle. I'm not going there. And remember, when going rates in Kanpur city, Kanpur has seen rapid deindustrialization since perhaps 1980s, not 90s. So, and complete collapse of trade union movement. So, in the city, so the going rates in the city may be 8,000, 9,000 rupees, 300, 350 rupees per day wages. So you can see less than half the going rate of what we are talking about. And so this is the kind of conditions in which we have to fight for these, rights inside the campus and outside the campus also, to the extent we can. Um, a very, very important part of our fight has been that even, every time contract changed, they said, bhai, we don't know, it's like a clean slate, we don't know the old workers. We have been able to fight this kind of a thing across all these contracts that I am talking about, that whatever you do, contractors change, contract change, but workers won't change. Even, workers, now that this is a fight which is 3 decades old, there are workers who have retired or who have become old. They have been able to put their necks, and with extremely less mobility in this, remember, in this economy, at least local economy I can talk about. So, there's almost no employment. So it's still here that you are saying you can get your next of whatever dependent employed when you are leaving the job. So now some of these kinds of rights we have been able to establish. One more thing, I mean, COVID time was a very, very bad time for us. I mean, imagine all hostels are locked up. Mess workers are all gone out, 800, 900 of our workers. But we were able to hold forth then. And as mess, it was a very, very challenging time when you're saying one hostel will open out of 10 hostels, 12 hostels. Now it's free for all, but we were able to organize ourselves, the mess workers. There was some very, very remarkable, elements in those mess workers amongst us. And we were able to say, there will be an order, there will be a way in which workers will share this, whatever limited employment is coming back. And that, able to negotiate that 1 year, 1.5 years is a very, very trying time for these 800, 900 workers and for us as Hamara Manch. So just to give you a flavor of what kind of thing remains, what kind of an equilibrium remains present after these 15, 16 years of Hamara Manch. One more very important thing that you must appreciate is that, see, finally, workers' struggle is not only economic rights. Finally, it comes to, the labor process. Contractors want and authorities want completely autocratic control over what you will do, how you will do, when will you smile, when will you sit, uh, you know and so it's a moment to moment struggle, it's a minute to minute struggle. The kind of punishments. So as soon as workers get certain economic rights on a monthly basis, it becomes a minute to minute fight. They will find this fault, they will find that fault. Somebody is eating masala or not eating masala, or smiled or not smiled. And you have to have organizations on the ground to fight, otherwise you will, things will just go out of your hand, out of workers' hands. So it's that kind of safety issues. Almost there has been no high-rise building in this campus where there has not been a fatality. I mean, why should IIT Kanpur has this kind of a record, or any of our institutions have this kind of a record of unsafe practices? So, so just giving you some extreme examples, but, this kind of a thing. And very, very irrational. Sudha also mentioned in her own way, this very irrational hiring, firing kind of a thing. You arbitrarily hire, fire whomsoever you want to. You fire. You hire people who are your favorites. You fire somebody. So this is a day-to-day fight. Remember, when we are talking about, it's not only talking about at the end of the month whether you get something or not get something. And that is where it becomes important that workers are organized on the ground, and workers, and then their users are ready to stand up with them. And that's why perhaps the best places where we are most organized is the hostels, where over these generations of students, we have been able to excite them to be involved in this kind of a work. If I talk very quickly, I'll talk two more things very quickly. One, I'll talk about, so what are our overall lessons that we see of these 3 decade long, this kind of a process, if I may say so. So I think one important thing is that what we have done is, community involvement, as I said, also alumni. We will just go to, we are very clear that whatever we go, we address it to the community, students, teaching staff, non-teaching staff, residents, and alumni. And then they take up things as they, so generations of students we have been able to be engaged with. And we also, Hamara Manch looks at, and this is what we tell workers also, that see, it's your responsibility, especially in a science and technology institution, where you are saying that all they have learned is certain equations prepared for JE or whatever, and then they have come here. Where do they learn about life? So we tell workers that it is our collective responsibility to teach our students. This is not what they are going to learn in their classes, in their courses. So this is, I think, a very, very important thing that we have tried to do, and which we hold in lot of value. Second, I think, is a very peculiar kind of an organizational form. I mentioned it. We have only one organized form, and these are these Wednesday 5:30 meetings every Wednesday for all these 15, 16 years. We have no other organized form. These are open meetings. They are fluid. They are flat. People come, people go. And therefore, yes, I mean, if you ask me that it has so severe limitations, it has. But given the fluid nature of employment, fluid nature of that, students come and go from this campus. And remember, in Kanpur, no IT student stays in Kanpur. The first thing they want to run away as soon as they get the degree is from leave this godforsaken place called Kanpur. So people are continuously moving in and out. When people find somebody works for a year with us, somebody works for 6 months, between their exams, between this, between that. So this is what happens to workers, this is what happens to students, this is what happens to our faculty colleagues. In all this, we have to find ways and means of working. And this is the advantage of it. It is that it is fluid. We have been able to maintain certain kind of a continuity in this. One, I think, perhaps important reason why we have been able to continue with this is, one, we are open. So that is one advantage. So everybody, and to the extent, so you will have more say. Definitely, it doesn't mean everybody can have more equal say. If somebody is coming to meetings more regularly, somebody is giving more time, obviously he or she will have more say in a particular decision. So that, but decisions are taken in Hamara Manch meeting, remember. And when there is a crisis, of course, one meeting can't, there may be meetings every day, but that is a different kind of a thing. Significant effort we have put in documentation. So everything we come to know, first thing is document. We try to be meticulous with our facts, and then we publicize it. So whatever means are available to us, notice boards, now a lot of electronic media, website, whatever. This is one thing. That first thing is we try to do is, okay, what are the facts? What is this? And we need to tell the community about it. So this is the second. These are the two important kind of the ways in which we, a very different kind of an organization. We face a lot of difficulty also, but this is what we have worked with. Um, so. One more thing I would say is that, though, as you can see, all this we are able to do because it is a public institution, and there is an whole overarching, somewhere a framework of labor rights, labor laws in the country. So we are a public institution, and these labor laws, we continuously invoke them right from day one. But we have our experiences with courts has been very bad, and therefore we have not tried to, we have not been spending times in thinking of going to courts and trying to find remedy. we have come to believe that given our limitations, our court or our whatever is justice we want to get is from the community here, and we try to mobilize them. This is one kind of a thing. And second kind of a thing is our attitude for the media is similar. We don't go to mainstream media at all. Of course, as I say, as soon as we do any fact finding, we are publicizing it through whatever means are available to us, to this engaged community that we are talking about. But to press at large or whatever kind of various kinds of medias, we again have not spent whatever our limited organizational resources. We have tried to stay away from it. We have whatever little trust in it, if you may call it. Our whatever we have been able to achieve, it is very, very uneven. You have to understand, yes, certain kind of work, as I said, especially the regular work in the campus. So maybe the best place where we are, where are we placed the best? Perhaps the cleaning work. Because one, it is, most unfortunately, but that's the harsh reality, it is a community based work. Our Valmiki friends only do the cleaning work in the campus. And Valmiki Samaj in this place is very, very organized. So because Valmiki Samaj is organized, because Samiti is also works with cleaning workers, and because, so perhaps if you look at the where we have been able to achieve the best right in terms of nature of work, various kinds of rights, you will see this is the cleaning workers in the campus. Worst, of course, is construction sites. It's very, very hard. It's not that we have not tried. Migrant workers, irregular work. It's extreme. There have been moments in which we have been able to pierce through all those, whatever they make those walls and cover this up. We have been able to achieve that. But those have been moments of crisis, some fatalities, some accidents, some breaks that we have been able to find there, and we have been able to reach. Construction work, unfortunately, especially after COVID, is completely gone. Because also remember, COVID has been a very trying time for us. We have lost one set of volunteers, and then it's like a starting with a new slate. So we are just, especially amongst the academic community. So because all students went out and new students were studying online, whatever that means. So a whole break in our continuity. So, but construction is bad, which is logical. Domestic, we have never been able to, I mean, people work in such large numbers at homes. We have not been able to reach. Otherwise, all kinds of people, dhobis, shop people, rickshawalas, all kinds of people at various points of time have come to Hamara Manch, and we have achieved something or the other, howsoever tenuous and partial it was. So, but interesting thing is research staff, if you look at it. And research staff is a white collar job. I mean, you all know it. But I mean, any day it is possible that by and large, cleaning workers will be having better rights in the campus than research staff. I mean, so you can see that how things work finally, where you are able to organize more, where you have people are willing to fight. Research staff, actually there are a lot of research staff with people say that the best salaries are available to cleaning and mess workers in the campus, more than all kinds of white collar job holders in the campus. But that's the reality, and it's very hard because the white collar people don't feel that they are part of working class. So it's very hard to reach there and be able to, and also various kinds of other complications which we can talk about. So this is the kind of a situation. Last point, if I just may add, just this last point, the challenges that we are facing. uh, See, remember, I mean, see, most important challenge is, that's where I think Sudha ended. See, what has happened in these 3 decades is the complete face of academia has changed. No? I mean, undergrad students, we are saying they pay such huge fee today and come. Most of the time, they are very anxious that somehow they have to repay their loans and get a job. They don't want to look left and right continuously. They are anxious about how are they going to make do with things after they graduate. Very little time. Look at PG students. PG students, there is so much pressure to publish, thanks to this ranking business. And there is so much of pressure, or there is such little slack. So you see, our volunteers 3 decades back, because there was academia meant there was slack to explore and learn and to have some fun. Hamara Manch was part of that process, or our earlier, whatever. Now, with this kind of a thing, look at young faculty. Before you join, you have to publish. Morning, you have to publish. Lunch, you have to publish. Dinner, you have to publish. Young faculty members do not want to have anything to do with us. So, this is a whole landscape which has changed. And so, it has already happened, what Sudha was saying, and it in IITs as well. So we tell them, bhai, you also come to Hamara Manch meeting. You also need Hamara Manch. I mean, it's not that, you know, we need you, you need us. And that's one kind of a thing. If we can tell, if they listen, we will tell the academic community also. The second, remember, when we are talking about Kanpur and our campus, it's a very, very little mobility. 3 generations, 2 generations, people have stayed. I mean, look at our present struggle going on about dhobis. 60 years and there is no social mobility. So, I mean, dhobis children and grandchildren are doing, the first director brought them here. They are doing dhobis work and somebody needs, and they are now being pushed out of the campus. Somebody needs to ask that why is that a dhobis grandchild is still doing dhobis work? What is IIT Kanpur for? But so this is another very all push, and those are very difficult questions. We have time to time tried all kinds of things in some get involved in it, but that also gets influenced. So no, we can't work in isolation. All that also gets influenced with what is happening, in the campus and across society. So with this, I'll end. This is what very in brief what I wanted to say about what we have seen and what has been our experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhaji. Thank you, Rahulji. Uh, So we had a discussion so far about how earlier Sudhaji explained how we came to this situation, how contractualization as a process started, and 1970 Contract Workers Act, Abolition and Regulation Act, how it has the abolition aspect has withered away, and it has and what are the legal challenges which has been posed regarding to that, and particularly kind of like the arguments which has been posed against to not hire and recruit permanent jobs, the which has been, and was particularly related to the gratuity benefit, which is exactly like 20 months of wage, has also not been like this all this growing insecurity of life as how why increased in like in the last 20 years. And related to that, she made a comment about how it is pertinent for us to persuade people in within the institution and make pressure and mobilize people around that to hire more people and recruit more workers in the permanent jobs. And Professor Rahul Varman presented a case and of how organizing experience he shared with us, which gave very valuable lessons for us to how to do organizing efforts for like workers, but also posed some of the challenges, how from minimum wage monetary committee to eventually making of the Hamara Manch, and what kind of challenges Hamara Manch has faced, which we are also facing in the time of the kind of change of face we are seeing of academia, especially in the in the current dispensation of Modi regime. And how student movement has also impacted in the last 20 years, that they have moved more into the limited questions of student, and the framing has been so little that there has been no student worker solidarity for now. So these are the challenges, and these are the ways we are doing the discussion. Now the floor is open for questions and comments. So anyone who has comments and question, Bharat, also please raise some of the questions which has come in YouTube comments.
Yes, so I will try to. So Pokraj Roy has a question for Sudha ma'am. Um, he asks that how do you see demonization of unions at workplace when in fact it's actually beneficial? Um, And also I want to add to this ki, the unionization itself is so less, especially in the context of IIT. The migrant workers who are here, they are very less unionized, and the construction workers are even less unionized. So not only there is a difference between permanent workers and contract workers, a kind of class difference, but within the contract workers also a kind of uh, different precarity there is. And how does the contract how does unionization and the contract laws itself affects?
No, that's a very important question. Yes, there has been a demonization of unions, and actually, if we see, not even 5% people are organized. Not even 5% of the workers are organized. As it is, 97% of informal workers. They don't even have a proper contract. So actually, unionization is very less. But just like, you see, there's a narrative which is spun around certain categories of workers, the permanent workers, the government employees, and it is said, oh, look, they have so much of salary, they take so much of bribe, they are so corrupt, they are so lazy, and so on and so forth. And that focus is done. Just like there is a demonization of public institutions, there's a demonization of the public sector industry, there's a demonization of government universities and colleges. No, private is better, private banks are better, private industries are better, private schools are better. So there's a, and this is basically uh, preying on certain weaknesses and certain failures and here I would say a big failure has been of the trade union movement um, in a time came in the trade union movement when permanent workers and contract workers, actually it was like two separate paths, and workers were not seen as workers as a whole, but the permanent workers would go on negotiating for themselves, and the contract workers basically would have no union at all, or no say at all in the thing. So ये जो situation है, in this, even among the contract workers there was a hatred for the permanent workers, you know. uh, so it's a very it's a very complicated situation where in we are not able to see the larger picture politically, and that way the what has happened with Maruti recently, this I mean the whole Maruti struggle was crushed mercilessly because the permanent and the temporary workers came together. That was the main reason for crushing it so solidly, because had that succeeded as a model, because now the permanent workers are in such small numbers that if they don't come together with the contract workers, they have no bargaining power. On the other hand, the contract workers are in such a miserable condition that if they don't fight, I mean, they have nothing to lose but their chains. Literally, they are in that situation. So actually, the combination of the two of them would be a very, very strong force. The contract workers don't have resources, they don't have funds, they don't have an office, they don't have, the permanent workers have all that, but they don't have any fight left in them. So this combination would have been wonderful. So yes, I'm sorry, I've strayed from your question. That was about demonization, right? Yes, definitely there is a demonization, and also unfortunately the working class has become unfashionable nowadays. Other struggles have taken class struggle is at the back, and again this is a very deliberate strategy to remove class struggle from the picture of politics. So yeah, it's a difficult situation.
Bharat, can I add something quickly here to what
Yes.
Sudha was saying? I mean, so this is a very important point actually. I mean, if you look at it, all these 3-4 decades that since the contractualization in the campus or whatever, even in the city that I have seen, permanent workers just won't stand up for the contract workers. So, and if you ask the contract workers in the campus, for them, the immediate face of exploitation for them is these, regular workers. And the all the organization of regular workers, that their unions and all have just not stood up for the contract workers. And so one reason we had to think about these new kinds of new ways and means of organizing them. So this is something in the self-critical vein for all of us to reflect more about. Just wanted to add a line, I mean, just in agreement, nothing that I'm really saying here. Yeah, please go ahead.
Just to just give a couple of examples, um, uh, we have been trying this thing because we have always worked with contract workers all our lives. But somewhere there have been a few successes, and some contract workers have become permanent. Now, after they become permanent, do they become like other permanent workers and turn their backs on the contract workers? That is the question. एक दो हमारे एक्सपीरियंसेस थे. स्लीपर फैक्ट्री थी एक रेलवे की डोंगरगढ़ में. उसमें थोड़े से ही परमानेंट वर्कर्स थे. दे केम टू अस फर्स्ट and the whole issue was on bonus. Now the company said कि हम आपको 20% बोनस दे देंगे लेकिन बाकी लोगों को नहीं देंगे. And then there was a huge churning and debate within the union. Do we take this 20% bonus, or do we say that you give them 8.33, we are ready to take 10%, not 20% bonus? Now, this is a big thing to give up. And remember, we are not telling, I mean, they are not so wealthy also that giving this up is an easy thing for them. But they gave it up. And as a consequence, our union got. So it is very difficult, not impossible. That's what I would say. And actually, unless they come together like this, it's very difficult within an industry to make a mark.
Um, I had question for both in a way. Ki, because of the contractualization, Rahul sir also hinted ki only Valmikis are got Valmikis get the cleaning job, or even the, so because in contractualization, the contractualization is happening from construction worker to professor, and then there is no reservation basis also for it in it. And so how has been your experience in of contract workers in the furtherance of caste hierarchy in IIT and in other places because of contractualization? Sorry, thank you.
Rahul, please, you go first.
Okay. I mean, see, this is a difficult question, and this question keeps coming back to us in all this kind of community-based work. But as I said, see, the larger context is there is so little mobility in the society. And if we are saying that in the city, even graduate engineers are working for 15,000 rupees, teachers are college teachers, I mean, are working for 15-20,000 rupees with a PhD degree. Here, our workers are getting 20,000. And yet, but this is a stark reality. A Dhobi does a Dhobi job, and by caste and community, say cleaning workers even more, given all kinds of the way society is going backwards. And so we are very, very mindful of these kind of this thing. So but work wise this remains like this. Only thing we can say is that one thing is all this process is achieved is that we have been able to form solidarities across various kinds of works. So it is true that, I mean, if you go to our messes, there are Valmiki workers there, but other way around is not true. Cleaning work is all Valmiki work. And you see, look at the irony of it. Tomorrow they will mechanize, they will start calling it housekeeping work, and other castes will start entering. When actually, then we will have to fight. Ki no, this work should be done, by our old Valmiki friends because they have been doing it. given the kind of there is complete lack of social mobility, and so these are stark realities, and given the nature of society, polity, and economy, it's extremely hard to fight with this idea that okay, this work belongs to this, especially some of this community based work. Only way is that either there is a larger movement in the economy, or of course the kind of solidarities we have been to certain to limited extent that we have been able to form. This is what we have seen happening here. Briefly I wanted to say this. Yeah, uh, I finished.
Yeah. No, I really don't have anything to add to it. Absolutely, what he has said is correct. Uh, Particularly in the jobs, and we see this uh, uh, in the case of particularly in the case of cleaning work, uh, it is really caste bound. There's no question about it. And again, as Rahul said, once it gets mechanized and all that, then that work will not go to them anymore. One of the particularly cruel, but also policies, we need to look at the way the policies also bind you to a caste. I'll give you an example of BMC again. BMC sweepers were given quarters which were called service quarters. That is, it was linked to their work, linked to their job. Other people would be given quarters, but which they could over time become owners of it. But the service quarters were done in such a way that they cannot eventually become owners of it. That means that the children of the sweeper, even if he has done a BA or an MA, just to keep that roof over everybody's head, which is too much to afford in Mumbai, he continues to do that work. Now, what can be more cruel than this? That so this kind of problem is there, and we need, each and every policy has to be looked at, each and every occupation has to be looked at, each and every contract and tender has to be looked at, and the methods by which people are recruited and all that. And most importantly, the doors of education and the doors of jobs in the government, in the public sector, etc., have to be opened out to these communities. So
आई हैव टू क्वेश्चन. दो सवाल था. एक सुधा जी से एक सवाल था कि मतलब अभी के मतलब लास्ट के कुछ एक साल में मतलब पोस्ट मारुति पर्टिकुलरली कि एक टाइप ऑफ कोट एंड कोट लेबर एरिस्टोक्रेसी का डेवलपमेंट मतलब डिफरेंशियल सिचुएशन में वर्कर्स का होने पे कितना मतलब कितना बड़ा एक जटिलता है संगठित करने के दौरान. एक ये लेबर एरिस्टोक्रेसी का कॉन्टेक्स्ट अराइज हो ना, दूसरा मोर माइग्रेंट लेबर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में मतलब इधर हम लोग आईआईटी बॉम्बे में भी देखते हैं, इधर जयवीर नगर में भी कुछ एक टाइम से इन्वॉल्वमेंट होने पे भी नजर आ रहा है कि माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स का जो स्थिति है उनका पॉलिटिकल कैपेसिटी ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस इतना लो है कि वो एक शार्प कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन अराइज करता है बाकी सारे वर्कर्स के साथ कोई एक टाइप का सॉलिडारिटी मेंटेन करने. तो मतलब जस्ट इसको कैसे देखना चाहिए या फिर कैसे इसमें संगठित करने का क्या चुनौती आती है, एक सवाल. और राहुल जी से एक सवाल था कि मतलब कि लास्ट के कुछ एक साल में पर्टिकुलरली 10 साल में मतलब जितना ज़्यादा कैंपसेस में स्क्रूटनी हुआ है मतलब कोई भी इवेंट्स कोई भी एक्टिविटी नहीं होने दिया जा रहा है, तो उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इतना वॉलंटियर रन प्रोसेस तो एक प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल एक्टिविटी हो नहीं पा रहा है मतलब डिस्पाइट ऑल द एफर्ट्स, क्योंकि परमिशन नहीं मिलता है, कोई भी एक्टिविटी करने का कोई स्पेस नहीं बचा है. उस टाइम में भी ज़्यादातर जो बीटेक के स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनका इतना स्केड्यूल इतना टाइट होता है, तो उस समय में अननेसेसरी चीज़ों में न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के तहत 32% कंपोनेंट्स ही मेजर सब्जेक्ट की कंपोनेंट है, ज़्यादातर स्किल बेस्ड कोर्स है. मतलब उस समय में इस टाइप का कोई एक वर्कर स्टूडेंट सॉलिडारिटी एफर्ट्स खड़ा कर पाना, उसके टुवर्ड्स क्या किया जा सकता है, उसको लेके थोड़ा एक सवाल था.
सुधा, आप पहले बोलिएगा.
अच्छा, नहीं, ये जो आपने बोला वर्कर और उसका, देखिए ये लेबर एरिस्टोक्रेसी जो है ना, मतलब ये एक्चुअली ये बड़ा, व्हाट डू आई से, यू सी, splitting up is very easy, and at every level, uh, every level of people can be very annoyed with people above them. मतलब वो कोई बात नहीं है. But I think it basically requires a political uh, will of the union of both the permanent workers and of the contract workers. The fact of the matter is that they cannot do without each other. This is a reality. अभी देखिए यही बात बीजेपी कितना क्लेवरली यूज कर रही है कास्ट के इशू पे. ये क्या कर रहे हैं, किसी भी एरिया में जो डोमिनेंट शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट है, फॉर एग्जांपल इन महाराष्ट्र, इफ देयर इज महार कम्युनिटी which is more vocal, more political, Ambedkarite, not coming into their influence, then they go to other smaller groups who feel marginalized by the Mahars, and then they will tell them, see, तुम्हारा कोई बंदा है नहीं, तुम जो है ना, तुम्हारा नेता को हम जगह देंगे. And true, it is also because there is there might have been a dominance of that group, like in Chhattisgarh the Gonds might dominate the Begas, or the Satnamis might dominate the Gadas, but in the process the people in the bottom, they feel they are getting identity, but actually they are getting associated with BJP, which is actually against everybody. It is not for them. It just wants to break down the Mahar dominance or the Mahar political capabilities by doing this. That is why they want Kushwaha with them. That is why they want Athable with them. That is why it is not because they are against Manuvad, but they are doing something else. So same thing is playing out among the working class also. So if we have this thing that, these are irreconcilable differences. Yes, I mean, sometimes it looks almost as if they're two different classes, but that is where we have to figure out which contradictions are the contradictions to fight and how, which are because otherwise we will be so fragmented that we'll never be able to come together to put up any fight. And this is really, I mean, for example, when Niyogi started with the mine workers in Rajhara, I know that's a very idealistic example. They were really at the bottom of the pile. मतलब वो contract workers थे, उनके ऊपर permanent workers का union था, उनके ऊपर भिलाई steel plant का management था, उनके ऊपर सरकार थी and all that. And पर जब मशीनीकरण के खिलाफ इन्होंने लड़ाई लिया, तो they inverted the pyramid. They became the leaders, and everybody followed them because they had the greatest militancy and political farsight, and they did not shun the others. They allowed them to come with them, because actually the लड़ाई against मशीनीकरण वो सबकी लड़ाई थी, वो जरूरी था सबके लिए. So that is how they succeeded. And even after becoming the richest contract laborers in the country, because there was a politics of solidarity, they continued to support other movements and other less fortunate workers. Now, because you need power, and for us that power lies in solidarity. So how do you do that? It's difficult, but again, not impossible.
Shall I add something? हाँ, so नहीं, मैं यदि सुधा की बात में पहले एक लाइन ऐड ही करूं तो देखिए, जब आप आदर्श जब आप बात कर रहे थे लेबर एरिस्टोक्रेसी की, तो वो ऑफ कोर्स इट्स अ कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, एंड सुधा गिव सच अ गुड एग्जांपल दैट हाउ इट कैन बी फॉट. But I mean, remember that any day there will be far less differentiation amongst the laboring classes or working classes than what is amongst the capitalist class. I mean, look at the differentiation amongst that. We don't say capital aristocracy and so on and so forth. So let's contextualize. I mean, society is becoming so polarized. So IITs, we don't talk about student aristocracy and faculty aristocracy. I mean, see, these are ways of politically looking at things, and of course, a huge challenge that if there is so much of differentiation amongst the working classes, then how do you bring them together? But let's remember that where what is this word labor aristocracy? I think one has been hearing. I have been hearing it from my student days or even earlier. I mean, first set of workers when they get unionized. So this is the larger context in which we need to put. I mean, very quickly this. जो आप दूसरा सवाल मेरे से पूछ रहे थे, वो तो बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है, क्योंकि होता क्या है, हर प्रोटेस्ट के बाद और कैमरे लगा देते हैं सब तरफ कैमरे। मैंने तो ये भी सुना है कि कुछ आईआईटी में तो फैकल्टी लोगों के ऑफिसेज के बाहर भी कैमरा लगा दिया इन लोगों ने, यहाँ पे नहीं लगाया है मर्सीफुली अभी तक। तो ये है ना, ये सर्वेल करना, ये करना, थ्रेटन करना, और अब सब आसान होता जा रहा है और भी ज्यादा। As I said, there is so much more academic pressure on everyone in these campuses. Forget about, so जो सुधा वो भिलाई के लिए कह रही थी, यहाँ भी सच है। यदि यहाँ सबसे ज्यादा फ्री कौन है, तो वो मार्क्स एक तरीके से कह के गए थे, हमारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वर्कर्स ही है, उन्हीं के पास सबसे कम है खोने का, तो वो लड़ने के लिए तैयार है सबसे पहले। तो हमको सबको यही कहना पड़ता है कि भाई ये लोग लड़ रहे हैं, आप लोगों को भी तो कुछ सोचना चाहिए इसके बारे में आपके। तो ये सब डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन है। आई थिंक वन थिंग वी हैव डन इज ऑल आवर मीटिंग्स आर एब्सोल्युटली ओपन। तो हम कहते हैं कि जो हम यहाँ कह रहे हैं, जो हम लोग यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं, ऑब्वियसली व्हाट हैपेंस इज कि जो भी हम लोग बात करते हैं, कई बार वो बातें सब जगह पहुंच जाती हैं, but in certain ways it is good also, because we are talking in open, we have this kind of an open organizational platform. कई बार होता है कि कोई किसी का कुछ ग्रीवेंस है, कोई प्रॉब्लम लेके आया, तो अगले दिन तक वो सॉल्व भी हो जाती है, बिकॉज दैट इज बीइंग डिस्कस्ड इन ओपन। कोई ऊपर जाके बोला कि तुम्हारे बारे में वहां बात हो रही थी। तो ये है, पर बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है ये सर्विलेंस एंड दिस काइंड ऑफ वेरी टाइट कंट्रोल। all academic institutions and their regimes are becoming very very authoritarian, because उनके सब रोल मॉडल तो उनको दिख रहे हैं ना, उनके जो भी ऊपर रोल मॉडल है उसी तरीके से हैं। It's a very hard battle, and for young people like you, it's a very difficult world, unfortunately. So that's all I can say. Yeah.
No, just one thing that I asked this question because generally it's been argued that now in this situation that students are so much immersed into the and to become get absorbed in the capitalist sector, they have no role to play in what people's movement or like or worker struggle. So in that context only I asked that question.
नहीं आदर्श, but look at the other side of it. There is no place for them in the capitalist world ना भाई। आप पता नहीं क्या कर रहे हैं, आप पीएचडी कर रहे हैं, तो हमारे यहाँ तो हमको दिख रहा है पीएचडी के बाद नौकरी नहीं मिलने वाला है, या वही दिहाड़ी वाला नौकरी मिलने वाला है। So if you don't fight, what else will you do? So the other side of it is, on the one hand, I mean, that race is becoming so much narrower and narrower. भाई मैं जब स्टूडेंट था तो हम लोग को नौकरी के बारे में नहीं सोचना पड़ता था, अभी तो this question is hanging every day to all of you young people. So what is the option? So that's the other side of it. It's the battles are becoming so much more universal in nature now, than saying that this is only for some contract workers or some workers who work with their own hands and all. अब एआई में तो सब बराबर हो गया है, मेंटल वर्कर, मैनुअल वर्कर सब।
True.
Bharat, we will take one round of questions. Do you have questions or comments, anything?
So in on YouTube there are no other questions, but I was reading Sudha Ma'am's paper on whether contract labor, and I was like, okay, oh my god, in 1970s 60s there was like a whole movement in which a lot of people were saying a lot of parliament labor, and it was almost unimaginable for me to think, okay, that some people were actually thinking those things. Like now when I think, and um, so the so okay, that is a very like utopian kind of thing it now seems, but still I was so
Yeah.
how
No,
do we
it was not.
now?
Sorry. Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so now do how do we if if as a agenda or as a discourse, if we are to talk about abolition of contract labor also, so how do we talk about it? Or just thinking, I was just thinking about the thing from yesterday, so that was.
Yeah, no, no. Actually, yeah, you're right. If it hadn't been a very strong public opinion, the 1970 Act could not have been passed.
Correct.
And even people from the from what later on became the BJP, at that time Jansangh or Mahasabha or whatever they might have called themselves, even they could not outright oppose. But you see, you must remember that 1991, that is liberalized. The LPG thing is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just ours.
Correct.
But very few countries had a contract labor abolition act as we have. So right from the beginning, they were okay with contract labor. And that has made it very difficult because now the multinationals are coming in and they don't want anything else than that system. But see, the thing is कि हर चीज चाहने के ऊपर नहीं होती है. And I think uh, in fact, when the Bhilai movement started, it started exactly in 1991, and Yogi ji used to say we are swimming against the tide. And उस आंदोलन का ये नारा होता था स्थायी उद्योग में स्थायी मजदूर और जीने लायक वेतन. They were just two demands. स्थायी उद्योग में स्थायी मजदूर, जीने लायक वेतन. So I think nothing could be more relevant today, actually. But we were going against the tide. I mean, that was the time when they wanted to fully contractualize, privatize. So that is going on. But as Rahul was saying, that more and more sections are being caught up into the struggle against this. मतलब आपने आर्मी को कॉन्ट्रेक्चुलाइज कर दिया, वे अग्निवीर चिल्लाने लग गए. पंजाब, हरियाणा और उत्तर प्रदेश के यूथ जो अपना फ्यूचर आर्मी में ही देखते हैं, ठीक है. Otherwise, we would not think that they would ever be on our side. But in this fight against contractualization, they're with us. We saw just recently what happened in Delhi University. इतने सालों से जो सारे लोग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे थे, एडहॉक पे थे, सबको आपने निकाल दिया और फिर आपने परमानेंसी तो कर दी. किसकी? जो संगी बंदे थे उनकी कर दी, नए अपॉइंटमेंट्स. पीपल लाइक लक्ष्मण यादव वर लेफ्ट आउट. तो ये जो चल रहा है, मतलब ये this is gaining currency in the society. And the issues of मतलब आज जो बिहार के सड़कों पे आंदोलन कर रहे हैं, वो बहुत गरीब लोग नहीं हैं. वो यूपी जो बीपीएससी के स्टूडेंट हैं, मतलब देयर पेरेंट्स कैन अफोर्ड lakhs of rupees of कोचिंग. वो बच्चे हैं, सबसे गरीब बच्चे नहीं हैं वो. तो now how do we build greater solidarities, build greater power, push for certain things, and and particularly regionally. And for example, अभी हम लोग IITs की बात कर रहे हैं, BARC की बात हो रही थी. जो सेंट्रल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में जितने लोग इस तरह का काम कर रहे हैं, कैन दे कम टुगेदर, कैन दे थिंक ऑफ सम काइंड ऑफ putting pressure simultaneously on all these different institutions. And these are all, we have to play around with these kind of things. So matlab unexpected things might happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Others, I have asked. So,
Okay.
if you have other question.
No. Now I think we can.
I think we have given such a dismal picture that nobody is daring to ask any more questions. Rahul?
Actually, I talked about abolition of caste to at least end in a possibility of it, or the hope that it actually was seriously considered by a lot of people.
Now I think we can move towards wrapping up the session. many things to reflect how we can build solidarity towards play as a student collective, what role we can play in that, and the kind of learnings we had from the today's discussion, especially the kind of like very practical engagements of organizing Professor Rahul Varman has shared with us, which is also needed for us to do something with the IIT Bombay workers in our campus, like lot of documentation, lot of meetings which should be started in within campuses, and APPSC will play regularly a role of it. Those students who are hearing us, who are part of IIT, they definitely should join us, should be part of us these efforts. We regularly do study circles and regularly organize discussions, and we also organize discussion when there is no discussion or our discussions is being clamped down by the institute under pressure of Ministry of Education or whatever. So we are in a difficult time, but of course we are trying to organize ourselves and organize solidarities around various people's movement which is happening outside our campuses, and we try to bring people secretly sometimes and sometimes openly to have a discussion around that. So please get involved with us. And to wrap up the session, I will invite Comrade Vedant to present a poem which he will share with us. Please, Vedant.
Thank you, Adarsh. I'm audible and visible clearly. Hello.
Yes.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. This is a poem by Zhu Lizi. He is a Chinese worker and poet. So this was the last poem of his, and it got translated in Hindi. I think it was from it originally was in Chinese, then translated into English, then to Hindi. मैंने लोहे का चांद निगला है, मैंने लोहे का चांद निगला है, वो उसको कील कहते हैं। मैंने इस औद्योगिक कचरे को, बेरोजगारी के दस्तावेजों को निगला है। मशीनों पे झुका युवा जीवन अपने समय से पहले ही दम तोड़ देता है। मैंने भीड़ भाड़, शोर शराबे और बेबसी को निगला है। मैं निगल चुका हूँ पैदल चलने वाले पुल, जंग लगी जिंदगी, अब और नहीं निगल सकता। जो भी निगल चुका हूँ, जो भी निगल चुका हूँ, वो मेरे गले से निकल मेरे पूर्वजों की धरती पर फैल रहा है, एक अपमानजनक कविता के रूप में। This was it. It was translated by Simran in Hindi. Thank you.
वेदांत ये फॉक्सकॉन के वर्कर थे ना?
Yeah, he was a worker in Foxconn company.
हाँ, तो अब हमारा तो आइडियल है हमारे रूलिंग एलिट का कि फॉक्सकॉन किसी तरह से इंडिया में आ जाए एंड वी क्रिएट मोर फॉक्सकॉन वर्कर्स.
हाँ. So he died after writing this
Yeah.
poem. This was his last.
Acha, one request to others. One is please share this poem with me. With what Vedant read out.
Sure.
Kindly share Rahul ji's contact. This is the first time I'm meeting him.
That is true. We are meeting on screen.
And I
we exchange
in
emails.
touch with mate, as you said.
Yeah. Yes.
Shobha ji. I haven't been in touch with her for many years. So
Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Now we will end the session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sudhaji. Thank you, Rahulji, for joining us. Thank you, everyone else who joined the talk. And definitely be in touch with us. And like the slogan as of Niyogi ji, Sudhaji presented, स्थाई स्थाई कार्यस्थल पे स्थाई रोजगार, वैसे छात्र आंदोलन का भी एक नारा है कि शिक्षा पे जो खर्चा हो बजट का 10वां हिस्सा हो, कि कोई एक ऑल्टरनेटिव एजुकेशन वी कैन इमेजिन and which is more people centric and can define a more progressive society. So we will work towards that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.